I didn't have a lot of any father figures in my life that I would characterize as a father figure.
But growing up, with my dad in the house was great because I always had an example. I used to put on his shoes, carry around his briefcase. I wanted to do everything that my dad did. I wanted to be, just like him.
I never knew my biological father. I didn't really have anything to even go off of in terms of names and things of that nature.
And I also really wanted to have the same respect that he had. Watch the way my aunts and my grandmother and how they respected my dad and looked to him. I wanted to be that guy.
And my stepfather, obviously from him being an abusive man, wasn't really getting any cards made out to him, and in terms of being the best dad and things of that nature.
And I don't even know if I fully overcame it. You really you deal with the hand that you're dealt with, and you try to find ways to motivate you. But life goes on. The hardest thing for me was not having a father in my life. I remember, I was very active in sports, and some of my most vividest memories that really accentuated the fact that I didn't have a father was during basketball season. Every year we'd have a father-son game where, all the dads played against the sons, and I was the only one on the team that didn't have a father. So, the other dads had to do double duty and that type of thing. And so, when kids, they ask a lot of questions. Where's your dad at? Why is he never here? And a lot of times I didn't have the answer. I didn't know.
I would say probably one of the hardest things I would probably say I had to go through as a child was watching my mother be abused. Growing up in a household that was dysfunctional, the loud screams, the disrespect, the breaking of glass, and all of the things that I feel like a lot of children should not have to experience. What also made it hard was also being bullied. And I think if I could say that the way that I found how to deal with them wasn't really from a healthy standpoint. It kind of led me down different other various roads, whether it was not being able to express how I felt inside, forcing myself to try to fit in more or less and be accepted. So I found myself compromising in a lot of areas that I perhaps would not have compromised in. So I think I pretty much just adapted to my environment. And at that time, my environment was very dysfunctional up until a certain point, however.
For me, I think the hardest, there's two things that were really hard, and they kind of come together a little bit. Uprooting from Lansing to Grand Rapids was really hard. We were very, very involved in our church, large youth ministry. My godparents went to church, family friends went to church. We went around this whole community to be uprooted in the middle of the school year. We went to Christmas break, and that January I came back, I'm in a brand new school, where I'm not in class with the kids I go to church with anymore. I'm the only black kid in class now. And I don't go to church with the people I've known my whole life. Now I go to church with, But I'd say the hardest part was when my dad was sick. When I was first starting high school, my dad was diagnosed with cancer. And we didn't really talk about it that much. We just kind of knew that he was having health challenges, but we all kind of found out in different ways what was really going on. So it was a little scary, It was tough coming home from school and seeing my dad on the couch. It's just getting smaller and smaller, and it's okay, I know we're supposed to be positive and have faith and all this kind of stuff, but is my dad dying?
With me, I never knew what my father looked like. And so he could have been standing in front of my face and I would have never have known. I felt there's all kinds of different emotions. But I'd probably say the one that was at the top of the list was anger. some, and I've shared this with for the majority of my life. You know, I had anger built up, rage built up, that I always had said that when I do see my father, that I was gonna fight him. That was the motion that I had because of all these years that you weren't there, that I had questions, that I wondered, and other dynamics. All of that just was bottled up, and it was anger, it was rage.
It was great. A lot of my earliest memories are memories of me either with my dad or something that has to do with my dad. I remember being really young and looking outside the window to wait to see his car come down the street. Not on some sad, oh, is my dad coming home? Like, nothing like that. But just, I would, stay awake until he came home. Then my dad would come home. And then I'd jump into bed to pretend like I was asleep. And then, he would come in and he, pick me up and he would sing, while he was holding me and stuff like that. So, I remember those type of things. I remember going with my dad to Monday night prayer at church, and being my siblings and stuff didn't go, just I went, and then helping him fill the pop machine afterwards, just watching him serve, watching him lead. I've always wanted to be just like my dad. And my first name is hyphenated, it's Evan Terrence, and so I remember for a short period of time in elementary school, I was just writing Terrence. I just wanted to be Terrence. I was like, okay, well, I can't be my dad, he's him, I have to be me, which is a version of him. I realized that later. But growing up, with my dad in the house was great because I always had an example.
Angry. And I believe that is the problem with a lot of our young men today. They're angry. Why don't my dad want me? Why don't my dad feel like I'm important? And it's anger. And it took me a long time to realize I had that anger. It was so much so that I would, my fists would just clutch. And I would, I even still got frowns in my face now, you know what I mean? To the point where I was an angry young child. But again, it took God to break that anger.
For the majority of my life, that question would have been why. Why were you not around? Why didn't we not have a relationship? Why weren't you an active participant in my life? And so I always thought that I would want to know that answer. My father and I, my biological father and I, we established a relationship later on in life, and I had the opportunity to ask that question, and he was willing to answer it. But at that stage, I didn't want to answer. It was no longer had any relevance because now I'm a grown man, and the why didn't necessarily mean anything to me at that point, and I didn't want to reflect on the past. I wanted to establish a relationship from this point on and move forward. And so I never fully understand the why, but I knew enough to know that it wasn't me, it was him. And that was assurance enough to know that the reason why you weren't around wasn't me. It was because of what you were dealing with. And so that was comforting enough to know, even though I don't know the specific answer.
Truthfully, what happened? I know for whatever reason, a lot of our ancestors, whenever certain things happened in the past, they kind of, put it in a closet or swept it under the rug and really didn't want to talk about those things. So first and foremost, I would like to know, were you aware that you had a son? Sometimes, maybe that could be the case. And what happened? If you did know you had a son, how could you just go through life and know that you have a seed out there and, having you bother to even connect with him?
I'd be curious to know, what did he feel like he had to sacrifice or he gave up when he started having kids? And then a follow-up for that would be okay, how do I help him get that done?
So my situation was kind of unique because technically my firstborn, I had a child outside of marriage, and when I was a sophomore in college, And so that was a unique situation, because the dynamics of that situation, it didn't materialize the way I had envisioned as a child that when I do become a father. And so there were a lot of different dynamics that influenced how we adjusted to that situation. And so I didn't get the opportunity to do what I had envisioned that I would do on my first time being a father. And so now, so my second opportunity, when I did things the right way and was able to father a child with my wife, I was able to do it the way that I had envisioned, the way I would have imagined it would be. And that's being there throughout the pregnancy, that's being there in birth, and when my son was coming out and being able to hold him and those types of things. And so those dynamics it's a surreal moment that you have to experience. But I was grateful that God gave me a second opportunity to do things the right way, and that I had the opportunity to be there every step through the process.
Oh man, I mean, that right there was a game changer for me. First and foremost, it allowed me to heal in a certain way. Number one, growing up unfathered, I was now about to be introduced to what a father is, and not having a pattern set before me, it forced me to look towards our Heavenly Father for a lot of that example of what a father should be. So when I began to have my children, it took me some time to adjust. I mean, I had lived life, pretty much on my own. I had no one to be accountable to. I had no father to call, no mother, well, obviously my mother had passed and everything. So, I was a lone ranger. And then lo and behold, now I have an anchor, in terms of children and a wife. I had to learn to adjust to that. And it wasn't easy, because again, I had a lot of deeply rooted things, but God allowed me through the birth of my children to be to the point where now I can unpack my bags and just settle in and receive what He was getting ready to prepare me for this next level.
I was challenged because initially, when my wife was pregnant, she was pregnant with twins, and we had 2 heartbeats. We did all of the stuff, and then early in the pregnancy we lost one of the babies, and so I'm an extreme optimist to my detriment. And so, like, even though we knew, or we were told that, there was only one baby, somewhere deep in my mind, I was like, well, it's possible that there could be 2 still there. I've heard stories of a twin hiding behind another twin, or their heartbeats being in sync to where it only sounds like one. So, like, I held on to this idea that it's possible that there's 2. So when Champ was born and he came out, and they were like, okay, we're gonna, close up. I'm like, hold up, there's another one in there. You gotta look. But there wasn't. So immediately I was hit with a lot of grief, but at the same time, it was a lot of joy, because I was so happy to have such a beautiful baby. And so I was trying to balance my emotions at least that day. So that was actually really, really, really tough. Was having to experience grief and joy at the same time, like 2 opposite things, but like at the exact same time. But it was definitely a life-changing thing. Like, something clicked for me, like, this is different. Like, I have a seed that I'm responsible for, that if we don't feed him, he won't eat. If we don't give him clothes, he won't. Like, just this overwhelming sense of responsibility was there, but not in a burdensome sense though, more so like a joy. Like, I don't know, and it sounds like super cliche, but it's really how that felt. It's just amazing that I had the opportunity to be a dad.
What do I enjoy most about being a father? That I actually I have brought something into this world. I tell my kids all the time, your mom might have carried you, but you're my seed. You came from me. You know what I mean? And to go into their bedrooms and look at them as they sleep, And, you know, it blesses me because, again, they came from me, and it's just a miracle, you know what I mean? So I'm always enjoying being a father, and they bring me so much joy and so much healing as well, you know.
Well, you know, one of the things that I've always said, one of the things that I regret in my childhood, and one of the ways that not having an active father has impacted me, and because of my mother being a single parent and having to work, a lot of times when I would have games, when I'd have extracurricular events, there was no one there who was there to support me, no family and whatnot. And so that bothered me. I didn't know it as much when I was coming up, but when my teammates or my classmates, they had family in the stands and I don't. And so I always had vowed and made a commitment that now with my sons, I will always be there. I want to do everything in my power to be supportive of everything that they do, not just sports, but any type of activity, that I want them to know that I'm their biggest fan. And so I enjoy that. I enjoy going to games. I enjoy going to track meets. I enjoy going to, different school events, and being there to cheer them on and letting them know that they have my support.
It's made me very emotional. It's made me extremely more. I don't know if it's like in tune with my emotions, but like it's definitely softened me. Like I love my son. Like I don't know. Like the best part of my day is going to go pick him up and seeing him run to the door, or when I'm at home and he's like, "Hi, Daddy." Like just everything about him just makes me feel like this is what my life is for. Like comedy's cool, music is cool, like, you know, and I would probably die without those things, like for sure, but I would give it all up for Chant. And so I feel like I don't know, it's made me more introspective, or made me more aware of my feelings.
Being a father has changed me first and foremost so much, especially being a father of girls. In our culture, when it comes to us relating to the opposite sex, we have all these stereotypes of what a man is supposed to be and what a woman's role is and all of these different things. But now having a daughter, having daughters, I'm realizing that I have to watch the way I say things. I have to watch, what I say. I have to speak into their lives. I'm the first man that they'll ever court. So I set the standard. I have to tell them how beautiful they are. Because if I don't tell them, then some young guy comes along and tells them that, and who knows, what they may feel, or how much they desire to hear that. But I set the foundation, for these things. As it relates to my son, however, I'm learning also that I have to also let go some. You know what I mean? I can't be the driving force. You're going to go this direction. I have to step back and see his gifts, and then recognize those gifts, and then, point them in those directions and help them to achieve those gifts.
One, being there and owning up to your responsibilities. All right, a good father owns up to the responsibilities regardless of the situation. Doesn't let the situation dictate what they do and how they do, but the fact that they're a father, they got to own up to it and be responsible, be present, those types of things. Be an example of what a man should be, first and foremost, a godly man, how to entreat a woman, those types of things, and some of the other responsibilities that go along with being a man, as far as being a provider and those types. And so I'm trying to do that, to show my sons how, as not just as a man but as a father, the things that you need to do, so that they have an example. I didn't have an example. The only example of a marriage I had was with my with my grandfather and my grandmother, who were married for, I believe, 49 years before he had passed. Otherwise, my example came from the Cosby Show and those types of things. And so, and then when I got older in life, that's when I was introduced to good godly examples of a godly home, godly father figures, and so on and so forth. And so I'm just trying to emulate that so that my sons have an example before them each and every day, because they're living with me in the house.
I would say patience is huge. There's general qualities that fathers have to have in general, but I think different ones have to shine during different stages of parenthood. I'm still new to this. I'm only 2 years in the game, but for me, I've had to exercise a lot more patience with my son being 2, and him telling me no, makes me flinch a little bit. But he's only 2 and doesn't know any difference. So I would say patience, but I've learned this about marriage as well. Like, humility is huge. Like, do I want to jump on him because he told me no and I'm the daddy, you don't tell the dad no? Or am I trying to really teach him to not say no? I try to think about the stuff that I remember as a kid, with my dad, and then I try to form similar memories in the sense that, like, okay, I want Champ to remember me singing to him. I want Champ to remember me picking him up, and and whenever dad picked me up from school, there was a juice ready. Like, just little stuff like that. Just, I want to have that example, but also too, just being able to take some of the areas that my dad might not have been strong in and learning on those. Like, my dad didn't have, he didn't have a present father in the sense of, like, emotionally and sometimes physically father. So there was certain things that he just didn't know to do. But even for him to be able to do the things that he did do without having that example was remarkable. But just taking, his example and using that, I think about the things that meant a lot to me from my dad, or maybe some things that would have meant a lot to me, and I try and take all of it, and put that into how I parent.
Unless you've had a father, you really don't have a blueprint to almost build upon. So you're bound to make some mistakes along the way, you know what I mean, had you not been, obviously raised or, taught or seen that, growing up. So now to be to the point where I have to now look to God, and I have to examine myself through his eyes, and I look at him as he relates to his own son. And I see so much as it relates to being a father that we are to mirror. For instance, I recall in the gospel when Jesus was being baptized by John the Baptist, and the Bible says, and the heavens opened up, and the voice of God said, "This is my son, in whom I am well pleased." The Father was putting validation upon the Son. And I believe that, again, as fathers, we are to validate our sons as well. They need to hear that I'm proud of you. They need to hear that I'm pleased with your behavior. They need to hear these things. So that now helps me in terms of how I look at being a father. I want to make sure that I validate my son. Another thing also is the scripture tells us that, God says he will never leave us nor forsake us. So then our children ought to have a form of security in knowing that dad is here. And again, remember, prior to me growing up, I didn't have that security. So it kind of was hard for me to believe that a loving Savior, a loving Father, would never leave me nor forsake me, when my own natural father did that exact same thing. So for me, I had to grow in that. And it helps me now, being a father, to see how important being there for our children, is and everything. So I look to God, man. That's my blueprint in terms of fatherhood. Even in terms of even growing up somewhat of an orphan. I mean, the Bible says that God is a father to the fatherless. So I had to learn how to be a son. And I even learned how to be a son through my own son. You know what I mean? He doesn't have to ask me for anything. He doesn't have to worry about me providing for him. And that's exactly how our Heavenly Father is. We don't have to worry about, these things. He's going to provide for us, and he's going to be there. So I get a lot of my my recipe, my sauce from the man upstairs. And I talk about Pastor Cisco all the time. I love his relationship with him and his father. I watch that. You know what I mean? I mean, it's an amazing thing to be a son. You know what I mean? And it's an amazing thing to be a father. So even as a young man to an old man, I still, you know what I'm saying, look at these things and consider these things. As it relates to my children, first and foremost, a spiritual foundation. I mean, life is so much easier when you know you can take everything to the man upstairs. I cannot even imagine going through any of the things that life, you know what I'm saying, dishes out to us and not having, a father to share this, you know what I'm saying, with. So first and foremost, relationship, and I tell them a lot of times, your relationship with me kind of shows me what your relationship with the Father is like. If you have a hard time coming to talk to me about something, then you may have a hard time talking to the Father about certain things. So you need to make sure that nothing comes between us. And if anything ever comes in between us, then you need to challenge that. You need to address that, because God will never separate you, from me. Or because why would God allow something to separate him, from us? And the Bible says, what's to separate us from the love of God? You know what I mean? There's nothing.
I want my children, the impact that I want to have on my children is I want them to feel, I want them to be all that they can be without feeling like they have to be what I want them to be. And I don't know what that impact is, like how to have that impact, but I want my children to be able to say, okay, my dad made me feel like I could do anything and be anything. And he always supported me, made me feel loved, made me feel protected. Like, I want my children to feel fathered. I want them to feel the way God makes us feel. And I don't know how to do that yet. I don't know how to describe that impact either. But I would say that's the impact I want to have on my kids. Is I want them to feel loved.
I want them to know, one, I don't want them to ever settle for mediocrity. I want them to be the best, and whatever they put their mind to do, know that they can do it, and to be the best at it, and don't have any regrets. Don't look back and talk about what you should have, could have done differently, but do it now. And then just to try to maintain a fruitful household environment that they can grow up in. Again, that they can have that example before them, and that they won't go out and make some mistakes, but they'll be responsible. They'll do things the right way. And so we're trying to raise them up in an environment of a God-fearing household so that they won't have any children out of wedlock, and that they can learn from what I went through and know how to deal with what I went through, but do it the right way. Find you a wife, settle down, have children the right way. That way that you can be there throughout the process and not have to worry about, child support, visitation rights, and all those types of things.
I want to be remembered for how I made my kids feel. I want them to be able to say, like, they knew without a shadow of a doubt that their dad loved them, that I did whatever I could in my power to make them feel loved. Because people don't always remember what is said, but people never forget how you make them feel. And so I always want my kids to feel good about me. I never want them to be afraid to come to talk to me. I never want them to be afraid to ask me for something, or to tell me that they're struggling with something. Like, I want them to feel good.
I've already thought about that, and I think about that often. And I want to be the old man that they walk into the house with, and they see me sitting in my chair, and I got the Bible in my hand, and that's how they remember me. in terms of my daddy was always in his word. My daddy, you know what I'm saying, always was, you know what I'm saying, working towards something. My daddy always told me how much he loved me. My daddy always, you know, hugged me and kissed me. And that's what I want them to talk about, you know, when I'm laying on my deathbed, you know what I mean, those things. And that's how I want to be remembered. But I think about that quite often. I do, and that is the ideal setting. Sitting in my own chair with my word on, with a light hanging over me, and I'm just sitting there as they come in, whether to visit, whether they come in, whatever, and they just see me there. And I want that impression to be left on their minds and their hearts.
And when I hear other sons talk about their fathers, that's what caused me to think about, what are my sons going to say about me when they're asked? And I just hope that I'm saying and doing things that are impactful and instrumental in their growth and development, that they may not necessarily recognize now, but they will when they get of age, that they'll look back and say that I remember when my father used to push me, when he used to say this, when he used to do this. And so outside of God, you know, I have to thank God that I had the father that I had, because he helped me be the man that I am today. And so hopefully I'm saying and doing some things that may look like it's going in one ear and out the other, but it's really resonating with them, that when they do become of age and they look back, that they'll be able to attribute some of their current successes outside of God, that they'll be able to say it was because of the father that I had. To be a family, right? That we're functional family, that we do family activities, so we try to do things like game nights and stuff like that we're active, trying to be conscious that even though you can be in the same house, but still not be there. And so I've had to learn that in recent years, that I don't need to just be in the house, but I also need to be here as well. Meaning not physically here, my mind is somewhere else, but give my undivided attention, turn the TV off, leave the phone in a different room, that type of thing, and be an active participant in whatever the family activity is, that they know they have my undivided attention. And so we're trying to do that. So that my sons know that you know, one, this is a two-parent thing, that, you know, with my wife and I, that we co-parent, that we're together, that they have both of us as support systems, and they can reach out to either one of us when they need something, and that we're a unified front, and that we love them, and that we're here for them, and so on and so forth. And so just trying to help have them feel that way, feel that love, feel that comfort. And that way, when they have their own, then again, they have something that they can mimic, hopefully, the good parts of it, and learn and create a different environment for their own households on whatever they want to do differently, or do more of or less of, and so on and so forth. If they're not successful, it won't be because of us. And so we're making the necessary sacrifices on our end that position them for success. And so that means putting them in certain school districts. I asked my sons, said, you all want to be the best at your craft? If you do, we'll invest the time, the money, the resources in that. And so if that means getting you know, things like personal trainers, and, you know, those types of things, we'll make it happen. Because and I think that they've enjoyed that. They understand that. They know that. And sometimes, you know, I can be a little hard on them as far as pushing them to be the best. But I think that we all need someone to be hard on. And those are some of the things that I missed, that I didn't have with my father. Someone to push me. Let's get up. Let's go work out. Let's go shoot the ball. Let's go run. Let's go work out, whatever the case may be. So I had to be self-motivated, whereas I'm able to help push them from my experiences. And even though they may not feel like it, they're tired. But hey, while you're sleeping, the next person is working out. While you're playing the game, the next person is you know, working on their craft. And so we're going to be the best. Then we have to put in the time and the work ethic that others don't have.
In terms of creation worlds, we are around here talking about wives and husbands constantly. You know what I mean? We talk about teen dating. We don't, you know what I'm saying, get down with that. Once again, you're still maturing as a young person, so certain things you don't need to experience, or you may find yourself carrying them later on into life. So in terms of relationships, I think I tell my son all the time, I think one of the dopest relationships you can have is when you can be a friend with a female, and it's not, built on a sexual, foundation, more or less. I think sometimes you'll ruin it because we think it's always supposed to be built upon sex, and it's not. It's okay to have a good friend, you know what I mean, and appreciate that. And if God allows it to develop into that, then that's what you want, you know what I mean? And I think a lot of the relationships that, are struggling in marriages is we probably haven't taken that time to become friends first and refrain, and we just immediately jumped in it. So when it comes to, the creation roles, I'm all day long speaking to my daughters about their husband. You know what I mean? Is he going to be tall? Is he going to be short? You know what I mean? What type of occupation is he going to be, is he going to be in? But at the same token, that's not something you should be concerned with at this moment. You know what I mean? Right now, your job is, to take care of your responsibilities, whether it's your, walk with Christ, whether it's your school, whether it's sports and those things, and eventually things will happen. As far as our, the future and everything, I want them to follow their own road and what God has for them. I would love for them to take over doing what I do. I threw it out there a few times. My oldest hasn't got that revelation yet. She wants the money, but she don't, you know what I mean? She doesn't want to put the work in. My son, on the other end, I think he's going to be in business. I don't know more or less if he will take over this business, but I'm almost certain that he will definitely be in entrepreneurship. And my daughter, she's expressed going into law. So, I just want to guide them in their path. And if this is not for them, you know what I mean, then so be it. And then if it is, then it's here for them. You know what I mean? So that's where we are as far as our future.
A vision for my family is for us to all take our individual talents and gifts and whatever it is that we do. Each of us, I think, will be able to do different things. All of them going to do something with music. That's not an option. So if you're watching this, go practice. You got to do something with music. Even if you quit later on, you got to be able to have that. That's just a personal thing that I have. But my vision for my family, though, is for us to take whatever gifts, whatever talents that we have, and use that to positively impact others. Period. I have this personal mission that my goal is to take whatever my talent is, whatever it is about me, to attract people to look at me so I can point them to Christ. Like, hey, look right here. Boom, like that. Like, somebody's trying to go like, hey, so-and-so's trying to get your attention. Like, I want to like, hey, God's trying to get your attention. Like, God's trying to tell you something. And I want my family to have that same mentality, that whether they're an accountant, a real estate agent, or a pool cleaner, whatever it is that they want to do, whatever they do, I just want them to be able to point people to Christ, point people to God.
I don't think it's going to be an overnight thing. And I think that, since the beginning of time, mothers have been a constant staple in the household, and they've been reverenced as such. And some of it is our own fault as men that we're not there. When you look at, statistics, there's a lot of single parent households, and that single parent is the mother, and fathers are not there. And so to honor people, we're supposed to give honor to whom honor is due. And just because you had a child does not necessarily mean that we should automatically honor you as a father, right? But we have to do something. And if you're absentee in your child's life, those types of things, then that's not going to cause the dynamics of how we embrace Father's Day to change. What's going to make it change is when fathers step up, when they start handling their responsibility as fathers, when they start doing all the things that we've been talking about even in this interview, I think those things are it's going to help start to change the narrative, right? So it starts with us, the ones that are currently fathers, and the ones that are coming behind us, that we really have to embody what it means to be a father. And in doing that consistently, I think the narrative will change.
I'm gonna tell you first and foremost, I believe that there's a shift that's occurred. I believe that again, we got dads that's stepping up to the role and is doing what they're, what they're supposed to do. You know what I mean? I got a lot of friends that, are fathers, and they are always sharing pictures and special moments with their children, and you know what I mean? So I think, again, in the past, the media and things of that nature may have put us in a bad light, but I think the tables have turned. And unfortunately, I hate to say it, but I feel like our sisters now are the ones now that, it's all about me now. You know what I mean? I want to be a boss, and you know what I mean? And all of these different things. And now the men are stepping up, and the women now are, taking on this role of I don't need a man and I can do it all by my own and everything. But as it relates to Father's Day, man, I think Father's Day is the dopest day, man. Father's Day is God's day. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? So again, for all those men out there that are fathers, you know what I mean? I think, whether someone acknowledges them or not, they got to understand that God put them in that role and God put them in that position. And as long as they're doing what God has called them to do as it relates to the seed that he's entrusted into them, they need to go ahead and dust their shoulders off and hold their head up high and be celebrated. You know what I mean? But I think definitely Father's Day, and no pun intended to my mothers out there. I love them. Ain't nothing like mama. But dad, man, goes through so much, man. Dad doesn't even tell you half of the things that he's even dealing with. Dad buffers a lot of stuff for the household. You know what I mean? Like, dad is thinking on a whole nother level. So don't, for 1 minute, feel like dad does not, deserve the credit. He deserves the credit, for sure.
I don't think it's going to happen for a while. I think we'll see a change in how Father's Day is revered when we see a change in the narrative of fathers. I think the reason why Mother's Day has always gotten so much attention was because Mama was there. Mom raised me. Mom did the hard work and blah, 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 blah. And a lot of people didn't have their dad. But now, like, all of my friends who have kids are great fathers. They're involved in their kids' life. So I think that as time goes on and the narrative of being a father changes and it's more evident, there's better representation. Social media helps a lot too. There's a lot of cause, like social media is honestly what made Juneteenth as popular as it is now. When I was growing up as a kid, I don't know talking about no Juneteenth. I didn't know what June 19th was. But when social media and people are able to put out information, or you can see what somebody else is doing for Juneteenth, or they're talking about, oh, we should do this, you're able to have a stronger collective thought. And so I think as time progresses and as new generations of fathers come along and they are fathers, to the best of their ability, kids will start to want to honor their dads more. And so we'll eventually see it, but I think it has to change. I don't think we can change the holiday before we change the narrative of what being a father is. I think that has to change first.
In my adult, I was probably about 19, about 20, 21, when his father, my other grandfather, had passed away, and I had went over to the house to be with the family during that time. The whole way there, I said I just knew what I was going to do. I had made up in my mind. But when he opened the door, it was like I knew it was him, even though I didn't know what he looked like. There was something that connected, that I knew it was him, and all that, those emotions of anger and rage, they had went away, because now I was just like, wow. Every time my mother said that I look like, you're my father, or I sound like my father, I had mannerisms like my father, all those was just going through my head, and I was just looking in like, almost like I seen a ghost. And so it was totally different. We ended up ending our relationship. Where, obviously I was able to know what he looked like. I was able to have contact with him. I had his phone number. I know where he lived. And so I made a concerted effort to reach out, as he did reach out to me as well over the years. And so one of the things that I didn't want to have happen is I didn't want my sons to grow up not knowing who their family was. When I was coming up, because I didn't have a lot of interaction with my father's side of the family, I didn't know that I was engaging with people who were cousins and so on and so forth. And so raising my sons, every opportunity that I had, when we would go back to Pennsylvania, where I'm from, I would try to take them over to my father's side of the family so they would get to know him, my other uncles and grandparents on that side as well. And so we were able to reconcile our relationship, and it was good. Unfortunately, he has passed away, but prior to his passing, I was able to lead him to Christ, and he blessed me that he was able to give me the very thing that I always desired as his son, and that was validation and acknowledgement. And so he had in his final wishes for me to do his eulogy. And so I was able to go home to Pennsylvania and eulogize him. And I felt that was God honoring the thing that I always desired. And again, for him to acknowledge me as his son. And so all those who were there in attendance were able to say, this is his son. And I was able to say, this is my dad. And was able to be influential in helping lead him to Christ. So,
just as of recently, though, I was able to do 23andMe, and I went ahead and did Ancestry.com, and I was able to find my biological father. And lo and behold, I found out I had also 2 other brothers, and also 3 sisters, and their roots trace back to Louisiana. So now, to be able to now have that part of me that I never really tapped into now be opened up, it's an amazing feeling. So this Father's Day, I'm sure will be a lot different. God's love is amazing. God's love will wear you out and wear you down, and then he don't just break you down, he'll then build you back up. And the way he does it is, a lot of times I think we overlook. He'll do it in a way of sending you a good wife. He'll do it in a way of giving you a seed and allowing it to come into the world. And I think what we do is we're not really paying attention to these things and how he speaks to us. So I would say that where I'm at right now, I'm actually learning how to be a son. I'm in a season of sonship. I believe that, again, everything that I'm experiencing now is just God's love and letting me know how loved I am. And I'm gonna be honest with you, if you haven't really received love, it's kind of hard accepting love. But he's a long-suffering God, and he's a patient God. And I'm finding that through all of this, that he's allowing me to realize I love you. Even despite what I did, I still love you. But I just did this, or I made a mistake of that. I love you. And the love is what wears you down to the point where we just surrender and we learn to accept. I'm a son. I'm his son. Certain things come along with being a son. Like I said before with my own son, he can go in that refrigerator and get something to eat whenever he gets hungry. He can go in his closet and get something to wear whenever he feels he wants to change clothing. Like, I'm there for him. And it's not conditional. It's not based upon his works. It's because of his role and my role. So that's where I'm at right now. So everything you see in this season and everything that we're experiencing, I believe is just God letting me know that I'm loved. I'd just like to say happy Father's Day to all of the fathers out there, you know what I mean? And I want to thank God for all of the fathers and the men that have fathered me, especially Bishop Duncan. Definitely I appreciate him, and all of the other men that have been like a father to me in my life, though it may not seem like I may have always listened. And that's how it is with children. Typically it comes back around full circle, and we always say, that's what you were trying to tell me, and we get it eventually. But I just want to wish all the fathers out there an amazing Father's Day. I want to thank you guys for the opportunity, for giving me a chance to even be a part of this. I think it's really super dope what y'all are doing, and I can't wait to watch the footage and